The Hidden Woman in Sundar's Childhood. The story begins on a humid summer night in Chennai. The ceiling fan in a modest home turned slowly, its blades creaking as if weighed down by time. A young boy, Sundar, lay awake on a thin mattress, his eyes wide, listening to the muffled voices of his parents in the other room. Their words carried a heaviness he could not fully understand, but the tone told him enough. Money was tight, bills were overdue, and the future felt uncertain. He was too young to solve their worries, but old enough to sense that the weight of life pressed down hard on their shoulders. And then there was her. Amma, the nanny who was not his blood but somehow felt like the soul that bound the fragile house together. She was in her late 50s, her hair streaked with silver, her hands calloused from years of washing, cooking, and caring. To Sundar, she was not just a caretaker. She was the quiet guardian who carried stories in her eyes, stories that seemed deeper than the neighborhood streets she walked each day. On that night, when the boy shifted uneasily, Amma entered his room. Her sari smelled faintly of jasmine, though her hands smelled of turmeric and soap. She sat by him, stroking his forehead with her coarse but gentle hand. "Sleep, Kana," she whispered, using the Tamil word for dear one. Dreams are where the heart finds strength. Those words settled into Sundar's chest like seeds planted in soil, though he did not yet know they would one day grow into something much greater. As dawn painted the horizon in shades of gold and pink, Amma woke before anyone else. She walked to the market, balancing a basket on her hip, bargaining with the vendors in a sharp tone that always got her the best deal. Sundar followed her one morning, his small feet rushing to keep up. He noticed how people stepped aside for her, not out of fear but respect. She carried herself not like a servant, but like someone who belonged to something bigger, someone who knew truths others did not. One day, as they passed a row of jewelry shops, Sundar caught her staring at a necklace in the window. It was simple, yet elegant, far beyond what she could ever afford. But the way she looked at it was not with longing. It was with recognition, as though the piece belonged to her once, and she was quietly remembering a life that was not visible to him. He asked, innocently, "Amma, do you want it?" She smiled, her lips curving in that tired, mysterious way. "Things are not always what they seem, Kana. What shines outside may already live inside you." He didn't fully understand, but he felt the weight of her answer. Years passed, and Sundar's bond with Amma grew stronger. She became his anchor, the one who guided him through the storms of childhood, the bullies at school who mocked his accent, the times when teachers dismissed him, the evenings when his father returned, home exhausted from work. Amma was always there, whispering words that lifted him when he felt small. But strange details began to surface. Sometimes at night, Sundar would wake to hear her speaking on the phone in a language he could not recognize. Sometimes letters would arrive for her, but she never let anyone read them. Once, when she thought he wasn't looking, she pulled out an old photograph from a wooden box under her bed. In it, she was much younger, standing beside people who looked wealthy, even royal. Her clothes in the picture were expensive, her posture straight, her eyes carrying a fierceness he had never seen. Sundar's curiosity grew, but so did his respect. He did not question her, because she gave him something more valuable than answers. She gave him lessons in humility. She told him, "Greatness is not in the titles people give you, Kana. It is in how you treat the ones who have no titles at all." He carried those words with him to school, where he treated even the janitors and drivers with kindness. And, though his classmates sometimes teased him, he never let their laughter bend his spirit. Still, the mystery of Amma's past never left him. One evening, a violent storm raged across the city. Lightning split the sky, and rain poured so heavily that water crept into their small home. Sundar's father tried to block the leaks, while his mother gathered belongings to higher shelves. In the chaos, Sundar stumbled into Amma's room, seeking comfort. There, for the first time, he noticed a small iron safe hidden under her bed. The storm roared outside, but the louder storm was the one that began in his chest. What was inside that safe? Why would a woman who earned so little, who lived so simply, need such a thing? He reached out, his fingers brushing against the cold metal, but before he could do more, Amma entered. Her face was wet, not from the rain, but from tears he had never seen before. She looked at him for a long moment, then said in a voice that shook, "Some truths are too heavy for children, Kana. One day when you are ready, I will tell you who I really am." Sundar froze. Who she really was. Wasn't she just his nanny? The storm outside howled louder, but it was nothing compared to the storm of questions now filling his mind. And as the thunder cracked and the lights went out, Sundar realized that the woman who had shaped his childhood, who had given him wisdom greater than gold, was not at all who she appeared to be. He lay awake that night, staring into the darkness, knowing life in his small world had just changed, forever. The cracks in the mask the morning after the storm felt different. The sun rose timidly, its rays pushing through the clouds as if uncertain whether it should reveal itself fully. Water still dripped from the ceiling. Buckets scattered across the small home, catching the remnants of the night's chaos. Sundar's parents spoke softly, their faces marked by exhaustion. But Sundar's eyes were fixed on Amma. She moved through the house as she always did, calm, efficient, and quietly present. But Sundar noticed something new. Her hands trembled slightly as she held a pot of steaming tea, and her eyes carried a heaviness that had not been there before. He remembered her words from the night before, echoing in his head. "One day, when you are ready, I will tell you who I really am." What could that mean? For years he had known Amma as the woman who cooked his meals, told him bedtime stories, and shielded him from the sharp edges of life. But now, every little thing about her seemed like a clue he had missed before. The way she sometimes paused in silence as if remembering another time, the way she carried herself, dignified even though society saw her as a servant. The way strangers on the street sometimes looked at her twice, as if they recognized her. Over the next few weeks, Sundar became quietly observant. When Amma shopped at the market, he noticed how the vendors lowered their voices when she approached, speaking to her with an unusual respect. Once, he even saw a man bow slightly as he handed her change. It was not the way people treated just anyone. Then there were the letters. Once or twice a month, an envelope arrived with no return address. Amma always tucked it quickly into her sari blouse and slipped it into her locked box. Sundar had never dared to ask, but now his curiosity grew unbearable. Who was writing to her? Why the secrecy? One evening when Amma was in the kitchen, Sundar tiptoed into her room. He felt guilty, but his young heart was desperate for answers. He found the box under her bed, the same wooden one that held the photograph. He ran his fingers along its edges, imagining the treasures inside. But the box was locked, and he had no key. As he turned to leave, his eyes fell on the photograph she had once shown him. This time he picked it up carefully. It was faded but still clear enough to see. Amma stood in the center, younger, dressed in silk that shimmered even in the old print. Beside her stood a man in a crisp suit, tall, confident, his hand resting lightly on her shoulder. Behind them was a house larger than anything Sundar had ever seen, its pillars tall, its windows wide, its garden stretching endlessly. The boy's breath caught in his chest. This was not the image of a poor nanny from Chennai. This was something else, something grand. He slipped the photo back just as Amma's shadow appeared at the door. She saw him, her eyes narrowing slightly. "Kana," she said softly, "you must never search for answers in places where the truth is not ready to be found." Sundar's cheeks burned with shame. "But Amma," he whispered, "why do you hide? Why do you have things that don't belong to someone like us?" Her expression shifted, caught between sadness and pride. She sat down, motioning for him to sit beside her. Her hands, rough yet warm, clasped his. "Life is not always lived in one straight line, Kana," she said. "Sometimes the path bends, sometimes it breaks, and sometimes you must step away from the world to learn who you really are." He didn't fully understand, but her words made his chest ache. Over time, Amma began dropping little pieces of wisdom, more than she ever had before. She spoke of leadership as though she had once led. She spoke of loss as though she had once lost more than he could imagine. She spoke of kindness as though it had once saved her life. But she never explained the photo. Never explained the letters. Never explained the iron safe. One day, however, Sundar witnessed something that shattered the mask even further. They were on their way back from the market when a black car rolled to a stop beside them. It was sleek, unlike the worn-out vehicles that usually crowded the streets. The window rolled down, and inside sat a man in a polished suit. His eyes widened when he saw Amma. "Madam?" he said, his voice trembling. Amma stiffened, her grip tightening on Sundar's hand. "You are mistaken," she replied coldly. But the man shook his head, disbelief written all over his face. "No, I would know you anywhere. You disappeared. Everyone thought you were gone forever." Before Sundar could speak, Amma pulled him along, quickening her steps. Her silence was heavy, her face pale. Sundar's heart pounded. Who was she that a stranger would call her madam? That night, he couldn't sleep. Questions crowded his young mind, louder than the hum of the fan above his bed. And when he finally drifted into a restless dream, it was filled with images of grand houses, black cars, and Amma's sorrowful eyes. The next morning, Amma acted as though nothing had happened, but Sundar could not forget the man's words. As days passed, his determination grew. If Amma would not tell him who she really was, he would find out himself. The chance came sooner than he expected. One afternoon, while Amma was in the kitchen, preparing a meal, the postman arrived with another envelope. Sundar's father signed for it absent-mindedly and left it on the table. Sundar's eyes darted to it, his heart racing. This time Amma had not seen it arrive yet. The envelope was plain, but the paper looked expensive. Sundar's fingers trembled as he picked it up. For a moment he hesitated, his conscience battling his curiosity. But the urge to know the truth won. He slipped the letter into his pocket and rushed to his room. Closing the door behind him, he tore it open carefully. Inside was a single sheet of paper typed, with words that made his breath catch. "The board has been waiting for your return. The assets remain under your control. We urge you to reconsider your decision. The family legacy cannot be abandoned. Forever." Sundar's hands shook. Assets? Board? Family legacy? What could all this mean? Before he could read further, the door creaked open. Amma stood there, her eyes fixed on the letter in his hands. Her face drained of color, but her voice was steady. "You were not meant to see that, Kanna." The room fell silent, the weight of her secret pressing down like a storm cloud ready to burst. The first cracks of truth. The silence in the small room was unbearable. Sundar clutched the letter in his trembling hands, his young mind racing with words he barely understood. Board, assets, family legacy. These were not words that belonged in his world of cracked walls and leaky ceilings. They belonged to another world entirely, one he could not picture but somehow knew Amma had lived. Amma stepped forward slowly, her eyes never leaving the letter. Her sari brushed against the floor, her shadow stretching long across the room. She looked older than he had ever seen her, as though the burden of years she had hidden so well was suddenly too heavy to carry. "Kanna," she said softly, "you should not have seen this. But perhaps it is time." Sundar's heart pounded. He had waited so long, guessed so much, but nothing prepared him for the weight of those words. She took the letter from his hands and folded it neatly, placing it on the wooden table beside her. Then she sat down, motioning for him to sit well. Her hands trembled slightly as she reached for his, and her voice carried both sorrow and pride. "You know me as your Amma, the woman who has cared for you, who has walked the markets and cooked your meals. And that is true. But there is another truth. A truth I buried long before you were born." Her eyes grew distant as if she was staring through the walls of the house and into another life altogether. "I was not always this woman, you see. Once I lived in a house bigger than this entire street. Once I dined at tables covered in silver and crystal. Once people bowed when I entered a room. I was the daughter of a man who controlled not just wealth but influence, power that stretched across cities. Sundar's eyes widened, his breath caught in his throat. He wanted to speak, but her voice held him still. I was born into privilege, Kana. But privilege is not freedom. It is a golden cage. I was told how to walk, how to dress, how to speak. I was told whom to love, whom to marry. My life was mapped out by others before I even understood what it meant to live. Her voice broke, and for the first time Sundar saw tears slip down her cheeks. It shook him, because Amma had always been the strongest person in his world, unshakable, even in storms. She continued, her voice trembling. I was promised to a man I did not love. A man whose wealth matched ours, whose ambition was as sharp as a knife. But I had already given my heart to another. He was not rich, not powerful. He was a simple man with dreams in his eyes. He worked with books. He believed in knowledge, not money. He made me feel alive. Sundar leaned closer, his small hand gripping hers. What happened, Amma? She took a long pause, as though the words were stones too heavy to lift. Finally, she whispered, I chose love. I chose him. And for that, my family cut me off. They called me a disgrace, a betrayal. They stripped me of everything, the jewels, the inheritance, the name. They told the world I had died, because for them, I no longer existed. Sundar's chest ached. He had never imagined Amma's life could have been filled with such drama, such pain. He thought of the photograph, the man in the suit. Was that the man she had loved? But why live like this, Amma? Sundar asked. Why work as a nanny? Why hide who you are? She smiled faintly, her eyes softening as they met his. Because, Kana, I learned something the day I lost everything. I learned that wealth is fragile. Power is borrowed. Names are illusions. The only thing that endures is how you live, how you treat others, how you give when you have nothing. So I built a new life, a simple life. I chose to serve, to nurture, to guide. And that has made me richer than any palace ever could. Her words wrapped around Sundar like a blanket, both comforting and shattering. He thought of all the times she had told him that greatness was not in titles, but in kindness. Now he understood. They were not just lessons, they were truths carved out of her own wounds, but there was still more he could not understand. Amma, he whispered. What about the letter? What about the board and the legacy? If they think, you are gone, why do they still write to you? A shadow passed over her face and she looked away. Because, Kana, even when you try to bury the past, it finds ways to rise again. There are things that still belong to me, whether I want them or not. Lands, companies, money, they are waiting, still tied to my name even if I have turned my back on them. Sundar's mind spun. His Amma, the woman who bargained for vegetables in the market, the woman who washed his school uniform with her own hands, was secretly tied to unimaginable wealth and power. And then came the question that burned in him. Will you ever go back? She looked at him long and hard, her eyes glistening. I do not know, Kana. The world I left is cruel, but the world I chose, it is honest. Yet sometimes I wonder if fate will drag me back, whether I like it or not. Sundar's heart tightened. He did not want to lose her, not to some world of gold and silver that would take her away. Before he could say more, there was a sudden knock on the door. Sharp, urgent. His father looked up from the other room, frowning. No one usually visited them at this hour. Amma stiffened, her hand tightening on Sundar's. The knock came again, louder. His father went to open the door, and standing there was the same man from the black car, the one who had called Amma Madam, in the street. This time he did not hesitate. He bowed low and said, Please, you cannot keep hiding. The family needs you. The empire is crumbling without your hand to guide it. Sundar's world spun. Empire, family, guiding. His father stared in confusion, his mother in shock. But Sundar's eyes went only to Amma, whose face turned pale, her lips pressed tight. The silence stretched until finally Amma spoke, her voice shaking but firm. I told you before. I left that life. I will not return. But the man shook his head desperately. You do not have a choice anymore. The decision has already been made. They are coming for you. The storm that entered their home, the room felt colder after the words were spoken. They are coming for you. Those 6 words from the man at the door sliced through the air like a knife. Sundar's father stood frozen, his hand still gripping the edge of the wooden door. His mother's eyes flickered between Amma and the stranger, searching for sense in a world that suddenly felt upside down. Amma remained still, her face pale but her voice steady. Leave, she said to the man, her tone sharp, cutting through the silence. The man bowed his head, but his words carried urgency. Madam, this is bigger than you now. Your refusal cannot stop what has already begun. Others know you are alive. They will not rest until you return. Sundar's stomach twisted. He didn't fully understand, but he felt danger in the man's voice. His Amma, the one who had always seemed untouchable, was suddenly at risk. Leave us, Amma repeated firmly, her eyes flashing with a strength Sundar had only glimpsed in rare moments. The man hesitated, then lowered his gaze and stepped back, into the rain. The sound of the car door shutting echoed through the quiet street before the engine roared away. The house was silent again, but it was no longer the silence of peace. It was the silence of fear. His father turned to Amma, his face tense. What is happening? Who are these people? Amma looked at him, then at Sundar and his mother. Her shoulders slumped, and for the first time she looked fragile, like the weight of her secret had finally crushed the mask she wore. I told you part of my story, she whispered, but there are pieces I never wanted you to know. My family. They are not just wealthy, they are powerful, ruthless, and they do not forgive betrayal. When I left them, I thought I had freed myself. But power has long arms, Kana. It reaches even into places you believe are safe. Sundar's father frowned, his protective instincts rising. If they are dangerous, why bring them to our door? Why hide here? With us? Amma's eyes softened and she looked at Sundar, because this was the only place where I could truly live, where I could give without fear, where I could shape a child's heart without the poison of greed. Sundar's throat tightened. He wanted to protect her, though he was only a boy. Amma, they can't take you away, you're ours. She pulled him close, pressing her hand against his cheek. No one can take what lives inside, Kana. Remember that. But that night Sundar lay awake again, his mind racing. The words "they are coming" echoed like thunder. Every sound outside the window felt sharper, every shadow deeper. Days passed, but the unease did not leave. Strange things began to happen. Men in dark clothes were seen near the neighborhood asking questions. Once a letter arrived at their doorstep without postage, a single sheet of paper inside with only 3 words. We found you. Sundar's father grew restless, his mother anxious. Amma, however, carried herself with a calm that seemed almost unnatural. But Sundar could see it, the way her hands tightened around her sari, the way her eyes darted to the window at sudden noises. Then came the night that changed everything. The family was sitting together for dinner. The monsoon winds rattled the shutters and rain tapped against the tin roof. Suddenly there was a loud crash outside, followed by hurried footsteps. His father rose, but Amma held up a hand. Stay inside, she ordered. A second later, the door burst open. 3 men stepped in, their clothes wet, their eyes sharp. They were not neighbors, not passers-by. They carried the confidence of men used to being obeyed. The tallest of them spoke first, his voice cold. So it's true. You are alive. Amma did not flinch. She rose slowly, standing tall despite her frail frame. You have no place here, she said firmly. The man smirked. Your place is not here either. You belong with us. The empire is bleeding. The board is divided and your enemies grow stronger every day. You think you can run forever? No, madam. You are needed, Sundar's mother gasped. His father clenched his fists, but Sundar's world tilted. Empire. Enemies. What kind of life had Amma left behind? I told you. Amma said, her voice sharp. I will not return. My life is here now. The man's smile faded, his tone turning darker. You may refuse, but others will not wait. They will come, and when they do, they will not show the respect I have shown tonight. He turned to leave, but before stepping out, he paused and looked at Sundar. His eyes narrowed, and a cruel smile curved his lips. Nice boy. Shame if he got caught in the fire meant for you. Sundar froze, his heart pounding. Amma moved in front of him instantly, her body shielding him. Leave him out of this, she snapped, her voice rising like thunder. The men chuckled. As they stepped back into the rain, their shadows melting into the storm outside, the family was left shaken, the silence heavy once more. Sundar clutched Amma's hand, his fear raw and unspoken. That night, Amma gathered the family. Her voice was firm, steady, even as her eyes betrayed sorrow. I cannot hide anymore, she said. They know I am alive, and they will not stop. If I stay here, all of you are in danger, and I will not let that happen. Sundar's heart broke. But Amma, you can't leave us. You are family. She pulled him close, tears glistening in her eyes. Family is not always by blood, Kana. Sometimes it is chosen, and you are my chosen heart. But love means sacrifice, and sometimes the greatest sacrifice is to walk away so others may be safe. His mother sobbed quietly. His father stared at the floor, torn between anger and helplessness. Sundar held onto Amma's sari tightly, unwilling to let go. Before she could say more, there was another knock at the door, soft this time, almost hesitant. They froze. When his father opened it, a woman stood outside. Her clothes were elegant though wet from the rain, her face pale but determined. She looked straight at Amma and said, Sister, it is time to come home. The ties of blood, the moment the word sister escaped the woman's lips. The air inside the house shifted. Sundar's mother gasped. His father stiffened, and Sundar himself blinked in disbelief. He turned to look at Amma, searching for denial, for some firm shake of her head that would dismiss the stranger's claim. But Amma's silence said everything. Her eyes, filled with a storm of emotions, confirmed what words had not. The woman stepped forward, her sari clinging to her from the rain, yet her posture remained regal as if the storm outside could not touch her. She looked at Amma with a mixture of anger and sorrow. You thought you could disappear forever? You thought you could abandon us and live among strangers as if your blood were not tied to ours. The family is falling apart, sister. Without you, the empire will crumble, and when it crumbles, it will destroy us all. Amma's lips tightened, her eyes moist but unyielding. I made my choice long ago. I chose freedom over chains, love over power. I will not return to that cage. The woman's voice rose, sharp as thunder. And yet here you are, hiding behind borrowed walls, pretending you can outrun what you are. Do you not see, sister? Even here, your past has come knocking. The men you fear will not stop at this door. They will come again, and when they do, they will tear apart this boy's life, this family's peace, to punish you. Sundar's heart hammered in his chest as the woman's finger pointed toward him. His throat felt dry, his world tilting, under the weight of words too large for his young age. Leave him out of this, Amma snapped, stepping forward protectively. He is innocent. He knows nothing of your world, of your greed. The woman's expression softened slightly, but her tone carried a bitter edge. Innocence does not shield anyone, sister. When empires fight, even the innocent bleed. You cannot hide here anymore. Whether you like it or not, you must return. A tense silence filled the room, broken only by the sound of rain striking the roof. Sundar looked at his parents. His father's jaw was tight, his fists clenched, as though he wanted to push the woman out and lock the door forever. His mother, however, had tears brimming in her eyes, torn between fear and sympathy. Amma sank into a chair, her strength suddenly drained. Her hands trembled as she covered her face. I wanted to escape. This fate, she whispered.
I wanted to build a life where love mattered more than power. I wanted to raise this boy with truth, not lies. But fate has found me again. Sundar rushed to her side, clutching her arm. Amma, don't go. You belong here with us. I don't
care about empires or family names. You are mine. Her fingers stroked his hair, her tears falling onto his small shoulders. Oh, Kana, if only love could shield us from the storms the world sends. The woman, her sister, watched quietly, her own eyes moist now. Do you think I do not envy you? She said suddenly, her voice breaking. You walked away and you found freedom. I stayed, and I drowned in responsibility. I am bound to the empire, trapped in meetings, decisions, and endless battles for control. I sleep in a golden palace, but my heart is empty. You left and lived poor, but you had peace. I cannot say I do not resent you for that. Amma looked at her, surprised by the confession. For a fleeting moment, both sisters saw the truth in each other, envy running in both directions, choices that had cost them dearly. But the moment broke quickly, as the sister stepped closer. Whether you resent it or not, your name still holds power. The enemies who circle the empire will not stop unless you return. If you refuse, they will come here, and when they do, this boy will suffer most. The words stabbed Sundar's heart. He clung tighter to Amma, terrified at the thought of losing her to a world he could not even imagine. His father finally spoke, his voice heavy with frustration. Why must she go back? If your family is so powerful, why do they need her? Let them fight their battles without dragging us into it. The sister turned to him, her expression grave. Because she is not just anyone. She was chosen, groomed, and trained since birth to inherit the empire. She walked away, yes, but her blood still binds her to it. Without her, the balance will collapse. And when it collapses, all those tied to the empire will burn, including us. Do you think those men will let her live quietly when they know what she carries? What does she carry? Sundar's mother asked softly. The sister's eyes flickered to Amma, then to Sundar. The rights to everything. The companies, the lands, the fortune. Even after she left, her name remained in documents, in ledgers. Her signature is still needed for decisions. She is the key to power that others crave. As long as she breathes, she will be hunted. Sundar's breath caught. His Amma, the woman who scrubbed clothes and cooked simple meals, was the key to unimaginable wealth and power. It felt unreal, like a story from a film. But the fear in the sister's eyes told him it was true. The room grew heavy, the storm outside raging louder as though echoing the turmoil inside. Amma finally stood, her shoulders straightening, her tears drying into a mask of resolve. If I return, it will not be for wealth or power. It will be to protect the ones I love. I will not let my past destroy this family. Sundar gripped her hand tightly. Amma, please, don't leave me. She knelt before him, her eyes locking with his. Sometimes love means sacrifice, Kana. But remember this. No matter where I am, no matter what they make me do, you are the greatest part of my life. You are the reason I found strength when I had nothing. Her sister stepped forward. We leave at dawn. Prepare yourself. The words dropped like stones, final and unyielding. Sundar felt his chest tighten, tears blurring his vision. He wanted to scream, to beg, to stop time itself. But the storm outside roared louder, as if mocking his helplessness. And then, as he lay awake that night beside the thin glow of a lantern, he heard his father whisper fiercely to his mother in the next room. If they take her, our lives will never be the same. But I will not let Sundar lose the only mother he truly knows. Tomorrow before dawn I will take him and run. The choice of love. The night stretched endlessly, every creak of the house filled with unspoken dread. Sundar lay awake, his small body trembling under the thin sheet, his mind restless. He could hear the muffled voices of his parents arguing, softly in the other room, the words spilling out like broken glass. His father's voice carried anger, his mother's carried fear, and behind it all was the weight of Amma's silence, the silence of a woman who knew the storm had finally caught her. At some point before dawn, Sundar heard footsteps approach. His father opened the door quietly and crouched beside him. His face was shadowed, his eyes fierce but tender. "Get up, Kanna," his father whispered. "We are leaving now. Before they come for her. Before they take everything. I will not let you grow up in their world of lies. We will find a place where no one can reach us." Sundar's heart pounded. He looked toward the small adjoining room where Amma slept. The thought of leaving her, walking away without a word, burned like fire inside him. "Appa, no," Sundar whispered back, shaking his head. "I can't leave her. She is my Amma. She is everything." His father's jaw tightened. "And if they take her? If they drag her into battles and politics, you will lose her anyway. Do you want them to use you to hurt her? Do you want to become a pawn in their games? She would want you safe." Sundar's eyes filled with tears. "But she would also want me by her side. She always told me family means standing together even in storms." Their whispered argument was cut short by the soft creak of a door. Amma stood in the hallway, her sari wrapped tightly around her face calm but her eyes glistening with unshed tears. She had heard everything. She walked toward them, her footsteps slow, deliberate, as though every step carried the weight of both her past and her future. She knelt beside Sundar, brushing his hair back gently. "Kanna," she said softly, "you must go with your father. He is right. If you stay, they will use you against me. They will break you to control me. I cannot let that happen." Sundar clung to her, sobbing. "Amma, please, don't make me leave you. I will be strong. I will fight with you." Her arms wrapped around him, holding him as if she could protect him from the entire world in that embrace. Her voice trembled as she spoke. "Oh, my dear one, your strength is not in fighting wars of greed. Your strength is in your heart, in your kindness, in the way you see people not by their titles but by their humanity. That is why you are my greatest gift, and that is why you must live free of this curse." His father urged him, his hand firm on his shoulder, but Sundar shook his head, refusing to let go. Just then, a knock thundered at the door. Not soft, not hesitant. This time it was loud, commanding, final. The sound reverberated through the walls, rattling the fragile home like an omen. The sister's voice came from outside. "It is time." Amma stood slowly, her hands still resting on Sundar's shoulders. She looked at her sister through the thin wood of the door and said, "I will come. But only if you promise this family will never be touched. They are mine, not yours." Her sister's reply was steady, almost weary. "They will not be harmed. But if you do not come, others less merciful than me will arrive, and their promises are written in blood." Amma turned back to Sundar. Her face, lined with years of both sorrow and love, softened into a smile that broke his heart. She pressed her forehead against his and whispered, "Remember everything I taught you, Kanna. Humility is greater than pride, kindness is stronger than cruelty, and resilience will carry you through every storm. You do not need my name, you do not need my wealth. You only need your heart, and your heart will change the world one day." He tried to speak, but his throat closed. Tears blurred his vision. All he could do was hold her tighter, as if his small arms could lock her into their world forever. But Amma gently pulled away. She placed something in his hand, a small pendant he had never seen before. It was old, simple, shaped like a lotus, its metal warm from her touch. "This was my mother's," she said. "It was all I carried when I left that world. Now it is yours. Keep it close, and whenever you feel lost, remember I am with you." The men outside knocked again, harder this time. Amma rose, her back straight, her chin lifted. She walked to the door, her sari trailing softly behind her, her presence filling the small house with both sorrow and strength. Before she opened it, she turned once more, her eyes lingering on Sundar. For a moment, the world seemed to pause, the storm outside holding its breath. "I love you, Kanna," she whispered, and then she opened the door. The sister and the men were waiting. Amma stepped out into the rain, her figure strong against the storm. The door closed softly behind her, and with it, a chapter of Sundar's childhood ended forever. Inside, Sundar clutched the pendant to his chest, his tears mixing with the rain that seeped through the cracks. His father held him. His mother wept quietly. But Sundar's mind burned with a single truth. Amma had walked into the storm not for wealth, not for empire, but for him. Years later, when Sundar stood on stages before thousands, when he led teams that shaped the future of technology, he would often reach into his pocket, touch the pendant, and remember her words. Humility, kindness, resilience. And though the world would never know the true story of the woman who had raised him, Sundar carried her legacy in every decision he made, because the greatest empire she left him was not built of money or power. It was built of love,